Hello everyone, this is Reggie Dawson for the Building Apps with Intel XDK and Parse course for Tuts Plus. In this video, we are going to finish up our article creation page. We are going to configure the page to list all of the articles and the page to display a clicked article from the list. We are also going to configure our cancel function. We are going to create a new function called listAll to list all of the articles. The first thing we will do is empty the content div of all the content. This could have waited till later in the function, but I decided to do this first so the content is empty when I add my list. Next, we add an empty variable for the listing menu. Then we use the variable allArticles to extend the parse object. After extending the parse object, this time we use the new parse query instead of creating a subclass of article, since we are displaying a list instead of saving an object. We create a variable artList and run a new parse query against the parse article class. After our parse query, we use the parse find method on the query of all articles, which is stored in the artList variable. Either the success or error function is called when the query completes. If the query is successful, the success function runs. The success function returns an array of parse objects as results. We use a for loop to step through the parse array. We are going to execute as long as the variable is less than the array length. First, we set up a variable in our loop to hold an individual parse object. Then we add a listing to our listing variable. We are creating a div with the class of myButton. This div has an on-click event handler that executes the displayArt function. The parameter of tempObject.id is supplied to the displayArt function. TempObject.id is the random parse ID assigned to each object and how we are going to reference and find the individual articles. Notice how we had to escape single quotes? The parameter to the function needs to be wrapped in quotes since it will be a string when it's added to the DOM. Since that is the case, we need to escape the single quotes that wrap the parameter. Next, we add the TMP object title through the parse get method. The opposite of the set method we use to set an object's data, get will return the value of the key provided to the get command. We are returning the title of the article to use as our label for our button. Then we close the div and add a line break to make some space around the listings. On each cycle of the loop, a listing for each article will be added. After the listing, we're going to add a div with the class of back with the label go back. Then we append our listing to our content div since we already emptied it at the beginning of this function. The last thing we do is add a click handler for the back div that triggers the cancel function. For the error function, we're just going to alert that we didn't get objects if it fails. We can also access the error message, which is returned to the function. Next, we will add our displayArt function, which will serve to display our article and also allow us to delete the article if we choose. The function accepts the parameter of tempID, which is the ID passed to this function when we click a div in our article listing page. First, we empty our content div again. Next, we create an empty variable called artPage. Then we extend our article class as usual. And after that, we create a new parse query against our article class. This time we will use the get method to grab a single article. The passed ID is supplied as the argument, so it will return the entire object with that ID. This get will also be expanded with success and error functions like the find method from the listing page. The success function will return my article, which is an instance of the parse object we grabbed. Then we use the get method to grab the title, the picture, the teaser, and the article itself and store them in variables. Next, we use the artPage variable to begin building up our page. First, we add an image tag with the class of artImg. This is the class we created to control the size of our image. Notice we don't give it a source URL. We will get to that in a minute. Then we add a h1 tag with the name variable which holds the title of the article. We add a paragraph tag with the tease variable which holds our teaser. Then we add another paragraph tag with the full text variable that holds the article text. We then add a div with the class of delete and a label of delete article. Then we add another div with the class of back and a label of go back. Then we append our art page variable to the empty content div. Next, we apply our picture to the image tag we added. We make the source of the image tag the URL supplied by parse. Then we use add class to add the my button class to the divs. Then we attach a click handler to our delete button. Now I could have used a separate function for this, but we already have a lot going on. So I will perform the delete inside of the click handler. To delete a record, we use the destroy method against my article. Remember, my article is a parse object. This method accepts a success and error function as well. When we delete successfully, I will just alert that the article is deleted. After the alert, we will run the cancel function. I won't do anything with the error function, although I could also put an alert there. Please note that since this is only a minimum viable product, I am not forcing a confirmation before delete. It just deletes when you click the button. Use at your own risk. Then I'm going to add a click handler for the back button, which launches the list all function and displays the list of articles again. The error function will alert that it didn't get an article. For our cancel function, I pasted the whole thing in since it's basically the same as the document load function we use to display the start menu. The only difference is this time I start by emptying the content div first. Again, we have our divs for adding and listing articles with the class of add for the add article and the class of list for the list article. Then we append our menu to the empty content div and add the my button class. And lastly, we create our event handlers for the add button that executes the add article function and for the list button that executes the list all function. When we execute the cancel function, it essentially takes you back to the start page. After we have all our functions set up, we can save and test. We should be able to see all of the articles in a list now. We should also be able to delete individual articles. As you can see, that article was deleted. That's all we need to do to set up a page to add data to parse. We use the JavaScript API, but we are going to use the REST API for our app. In the next video, we will actually install the XDK and create our project.